Welcome to this Movie Panel's One Shot. Let's have a nerdy little conversation. Today we're going to talk about the origins of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. So last week, Justin joined me for a full review of the 1990 movie, and now he is back so that we can talk about the origins of the comic that I just felt was a little bit too much to fit into that episode. So please welcome everybody to our co-host for this one shot, same as last week. Please welcome Justin Baker.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So let's jump right into this. So Eastman and Laird, as we talked about last week, they are the ones behind Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. And it actually started with another comic.
Okay.
They were in the process of finishing up a comic called Fugitoid.
Never heard of it.
Does that name ring a bell? Oh, but you have. You just maybe better know him by the name Dr. Honeycutt.
Now that does ring a bell.
Yes, that is a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles character.
Okay.
That is the robot. He was a scientist, Dr. Honeycutt, who ends up finding out one day that his consciousness has been placed inside of this robot he created, and he became an ally for the Turtles later on. But he was intended originally to be his own comic. Fugitoid is a mixture of the words fugitive and android.
Okay.
Fugitoid. But yeah, so there is a Fugitoid comic. There was one issue and only one issue. They did some strips that went into some other publications, but not here to talk about Fugitoid. Let's talk about what the connection is. So while Eastman and Laird were finishing up Fugitoid, they were sitting there, and Eastman just got this inspiration, this idea, and he sat down and he sketched out a turtle wearing a mask and holding nunchucks. And he showed it to Laird, and they got a kick out of it. Because, of course, a Ninja Turtle
it's the most ridiculous
makes no
thing.
sense. Yes, because ninjas are supposed to be quick and stealthy. And a turtle, of course, is none of those things.
Yep.
So,
Ninja kicked the rabbit.
Yeah. Laird then drew another one, kind of upped Eastman a little bit, made it a little bit better. Eastman then, of course, said, nope, this was my idea, so I gotta do this even better. And so Eastman drew 4 turtles and put them in this very, epic pose. And he did it entirely in pencil. Laird then inked it. And where Eastman had written Ninja Turtle, Laird wrote right above it Teenage Mutant. And thus you have the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, which, let's talk about where I believe, I did not see anything that officially says that Eastman and Laird did this. But I believe that the name Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles was a reference to popular and successful comics of that time.
Okay.
So, on the DC end, you have the New Teen Titans.
True.
So there's your teenage connection. You even had on the Marvel side, you had the New Mutants that were getting started up, and of course that's a younger version of the X-Men's. They're teenagers. Then of course you have the X-Men themselves being the mutants. So there's your New Mutant there, X-Men. Ninja is a Daredevil connection, which there's a much deeper Daredevil connection that I'll get into in just a minute if you're not familiar. And then I think, of course, them being turtles is joking off the fact that one of the most popular comics of the 80s, we've talked about on the show before, was Howard the Duck.
True.
So having this, anthropomorphic creature, animal, talking larger than life animal, I think that's where. So I honestly think that's where Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles were kind of their inspiration came from, were all of these popular comics of the time.
Yeah, just taking all the different types of comics, anything that was popular, and just kind of mushing it together in a friendly, competition.
Yeah. So, had you ever heard the Daredevil connection before?
I feel like I've heard it. maybe from you in an old podcast, or just on an old article, but I don't know it to heart. I've heard of a connection.
All right. So Eastman and Laird were big fans of Frank Miller.
Mm-hmm.
He was real big in the 80s, and he had done Daredevil. So the Turtles' origin is tied to Daredevil's origin.
With, the toxic waste.
Yes, but I mean almost exact. So this is, quote, this is direct from Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles #1 when Splinter is telling the origin. This is exactly what he says. An old blind man crossing the street was almost run down by a large truck, but at the last moment, a young man leaped into the street and knocked the blind man out of the truck's path. As the truck screeched to a jarring stop, a metal canister bounced out of the back of the truck and struck the young man. That's Daredevil's origin.
So the Ninja Turtles were just there for Daredevil's origin.
Yeah. So then it goes on, and it says, unnoticed by the crowd, the canister bounced several more times, ultimately striking and smashing a boy's glass bowl, which held 4 small turtles. So again, for those of you not familiar, in Daredevil #1, Matt Murdock sees a truck barreling down on an old man. As he pushes the old man out of the way, and as the truck swerves, a canister flies out, striking Murdock in the face. Now, then the substance inside the canister is what causes Matt Murdock to go blind, as well as enhance his other senses, creating him as the superhero Daredevil. What Eastman and Laird did was, well, let's just say that canister kept bouncing and ended up knocking these turtles out of this glass bowl, ending up in the sewer, and this is how they got created. So
does that mean we can have a Ninja Turtle and Daredevil crossover?
I mean, I'm sure we could. We've had Batman crossover with the Turtles before.
True.
But
who would win though?
Well, I mean, it would be like anything. They'd fight a little bit, but then they'd end up having to team up against a bigger
They'd end up eating pizza at the end.
So, yeah. So, continuing the Daredevil connection. So, do you know the name of the guy who trained Matt Murdock to be a fighter?
It's the old guy.
Yep.
I know.
Old guy.
You're going to say his name, and I'm going to kick myself because I'm having a brain fart moment.
So, his name is Stick. Yep. His name is Stick.
Got it before the buzzer.
And what's the name of the person who trains the turtles?
Splinter.
I mean, come on. What is the name of the evil organization that Daredevil is always up against?
The Hand.
The Hand. And so what's the name of the evil organization? The Turtles are always up against.
The Foot.
The Foot. I mean, it's right there. The inspiration they got from Frank Miller's Daredevil, it is right there. So
so good.
Yeah. All right, and let's talk about their names. So, of course, they are named after Italian Renaissance artists. Eastman and Laird wanted them to be named to have like Japanese names, but they were having such a difficult time like coming up with names. So they just decided to go to one of their art books and flip through it, and they went, "Hey, who's your favorite 4 Renaissance artists?" Leonardo, Michelangelo, Donatello, and Raphael. Now, have you ever noticed that Michelangelo is spelled different?
No, I haven't.
Yes. So in the Turtles realm, it is Michael-Angelo.
Oh.
Not Michelangelo, which is how. And that was done on purpose. It was done on purpose because, according to Eastman and Laird, Splinter, I mean, he might be good at kung fu, but he is just a rat, and so he is not great at spelling.
Yeah, not the sharpest knife in the drawer.
Yeah.
That's Shredder.
So, and yeah, which let's talk about Shredder. Shredder, the look of Shredder was inspired by a cheese grater.
Bet was, what does Michelangelo say in the movie? Bet he doesn't have to ask for coleslaw.
Yeah. But yeah, so it was actually Eastman, Kevin Eastman, who was looking at a cheese shredder and said, you know what? This would be a really dangerous weapon in the wrong hands.
Shows you art can be found anywhere.
Yeah. So the whole look of Shredder was based off of a cheese grater. Did you know, though, that they did not intend Shredder to be like a really important part of the overall story? Like, they defeat Shredder in the first issue, like supposedly kill him. Now they brought him back later in, I think it was issue 10. They brought him back because of just the popularity, but they did not think Shredder was anything more than just a one-off villain.
I mean, I wouldn't think that, a villain that I made from a, cheese grater would be, my number one villain.
But yeah, this is, it's so crazy. You've got a comic created by two guys out of one of their living rooms. They printed 3,000 copies of the first issue, sold out almost immediately. They printed another 6,000, sold out of those, and this is just in a couple of months. They are able to pay everything off. They even were able to pay Eastman's uncle back for a $1,300 loan he had given them to do it. And after the first issue, Eastman and Laird split a $200 profit. Yeah.
Which back in the 80s is probably 500, almost 1,000 today.
It's still not as much, though, as it should be. Of course, they would make up for that later with all the licensing deals. And
all those toys.
And then eventually selling the rights to Nickelodeon, to Viacom. I know they had some falling out. We're not going to talk about Eastman and Laird's falling out and all that. We're just going to stick to this. Are you familiar with any of the parodies of the Turtles?
I don't think I am.
Okay. So first off, the Turtles are a parody themselves. We've already talked about that. Mm-hmm. Like, they're making fun of the comics of the 80s, like the Frank Miller stuff, where it was just over the top, dark and gritty, of Daredevil. I mean, Casey Jones is pretty much making fun of the vigilante type characters like the Punisher. And it's just, yeah, it's all parodies. So that means people were making parodies of parodies to try to cash in on the popularity of the Turtles. So here are some other comic book titles from around this time. You ready?
All right.
These are real titles. I just want to go ahead and preface that. We have adolescent radioactive black belt hamsters. There are preteen dirty jean kung fu kangaroos.
Is that going to be the Australian version?
I didn't look in too much about any of these, but oh dear Lord. And I'm not done. Let's keep going. Mildly microwaved prepubescent kung fu gophers. Mildly microwaved. That's yeah.
Like, put my hamster in the microwave for 2 seconds.
Yeah. Then we go to the complete other end. So instead of being young and all that, we got geriatric gangrene jujitsu gerbils.
Hey, that might make a good movie.
Then we have naive interdimensional commando koalas. And then finally, I found a comic called Boris the Bear. Right? Now that doesn't seem like much. No. But then you find out that the first issue of Boris the Bear and the whole creation of Boris the Bear was to pretty much put an end to all of these ridiculous comics that were being put out. So the first issue is titled Boris the Bear Slaughters the Teenage Radioactive Black Belt Mutant Ninja Critters.
Yeah, that'll put a stop to it.
Yeah, and the Boris the Bear comic would even, after he would, I mean, he would take out versions of the turtles and versions of these, hamsters and these after he would take all of them out. This is kind of like, they've had like Deadpool, kills the Marvel universe.
Mm-hmm.
This was Boris the Bear going after all of these. He would even later go after like parodies of the Transformers and parodies of other things. So part of me really wants to pick up some of these Boris the Bear comics.
I'm definitely going to have to look Boris the Bear up. But you talking about the geriatric ones, it does bring a good question.
The geriatric gangrene jujitsu gerbils.
I feel like you never see anything, and I mean, of course, it's Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, but I feel like there's never anything about them, being older. I mean, you can't use Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. But...
Yeah. Well, I mean the Last Ronin storyline is...
True, which I think they're making a movie of.
Show. Oh, man, that is a good comic. Mm. And, that does deal with taking place in the future, and April's older. In fact, April has a kid, and we get to see the turtles a little bit older. I don't want to give away. If you have not read The Last Ronin, I'm not going to give anything away. I even knew one of the twists. And of course, it's revealed at the end of the first issue, but I knew the twist. It still hit me. It is such a good comic. I'm just going to leave it at that because I don't want to slip and accidentally reveal anything about The Last Ronin. But yeah, if you have not read The Last Ronin, high recommend. But yeah, I just wanted to spend a few minutes. Again, this is a short one shot, but this would have made the episode last week just a little longer than it needed to be, and just talk about this crazy origin of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles in terms of the comic book and just how successful that comic was. And I know that even that first drawing that he did of the turtle, I know it sold at auction not that long ago for, I want to say like $71,000 or something. Yeah, just a sketch, just a drawing. But that is how popular these are. And of course, we just talked about the movie that was the first movie. Now, of course, the animated series had come before, but this was the first movie of 3, and then they would loosely reboot it with the CGI movie TMNT, because that's a loose sequel. And then of course, Michael Bay would have his 2 movies. We would get a whole bunch more animated series, and then just now recently we've got a whole new animated movie, the Mayhem. I forgot the name of it. Mutant Mayhem. Yeah, so it's amazing. We're talking 84, and I don't think the Turtles have ever stopped. So we've got others to talk about and plenty more to talk about when it comes to Turtles. But this was the origin of the Teenage Mutant Turtles. And so thank you, Justin, for joining me once again for another week to talk about this and get this insane origin story. I'm a big Daredevil fan, so it kind of is funny to me that they're tied to Daredevil.
We need a Ninja Turtles Daredevil crossover, and we need somebody to make it.
I at least want to see like just a kind of a tongue-in-cheek maybe Easter egg in. They're going to do the Daredevil Born Again series for Disney Plus. Like, I just want to see a little something. Yeah, just give me something.
Just some eyes peeking from under the manhole, watching.
Throw a little nod or something. They probably can't get away with something like that, considering, like I said, Turtles are owned by a different company. But just have a moment where there's a kid holding a glass bowl of 4 turtles inside of it. Just give us a little nod. All right, we're going to wrap it up there. Thanks, everybody, for listening. Again, we are kicking off year 4 with these episodes, so we're in for a whole new year of moving panels, and so we're excited. So thank you, Justin, for joining, and I will definitely get you back as soon as we can for something else down the road.
Yeah, well, thank you for having me. It's always a pleasure.
All right, thanks, everybody, for listening. For Moving Panels, I'm Laramy Wells, and I'll see you on the other side of the page.